Born to Nigerian father and Irish Geordie mum, her earliest memories were of the Biafra War.
My earliest memories are about war and migration, if you like. I do have memories of the Biafran War and of air raid sirens and taken off in the dark when we left Biafra.
The love and community that she and her family received upon returning to Newcastle sparked a fire of love for the city that has only burned brighter through the years.
We arrived here from war-torn, literally war-torn country, and my mother had cancer. That was one of the reasons why we came back. We got a council house from the council. We got fantastic education. We got health, support. So it was really that kind of level of support was really important, and that was part of Geordie's solidarity that I really remember.
She now serves as the Labour MP for Newcastle Central and West and was appointed Dame Commander of the Order of the British Empire in June 2025. And while the awards and recognitions are great, the legacy she seeks is this.
I showed people in Newcastle and across the country or the world that you can grow up on a council estate and go to a state school and be from immigrant background and make the world a better place.
As a trained engineer turned politician, she has been vocal about her position in big tech regulation.
If you could speak to one CEO of a tech company right now and you could say something to them, who would it be? What would you say?
What I would say to them, in the end, I believe very strongly that the people always win. So you really need to be on the right side of history and do technology for the good of people.
If technology were a person, what do you think is for us or against us?
Technology is always a baby. And so, we have to decide how we shape it. We make the technology, and we need to make it the technology which is a person that we like.
What would be your message to the African leaders who may be seeing this?
My message to African leaders is to...
Engineer turned politician, Member of Parliament, Dame Commander of the Order of the British Empire, and proud Geordie. This is Chi Onwurah, and this is Critical Factor.
Thank you for being here, Chi.
It's a great pleasure.
As usual, we dive in on the deep end, and knowing your schedule is as packed as it is, we'll squeeze every ounce of juice we can from you in the time we've got. But
Good.
I know your early childhood was spent between two continents.
Yes, in a manner of speaking. So I was born. I was actually born in Wallsend, which, as the name implies, is at the end of Hadrian's Wall and right next to Newcastle. But I can't say I'm born in Newcastle because people are very, very particular about where things are. So I was born in Wallsend, and at the age of, I think, 6 months, my parents, my father was Nigerian. My mother was Irish Geordie, decided to move to Nigeria. So some of my earliest memories are Nigeria, in Awka, in what is now Anambra State. And then, with classic sort of good timing, the Biafran Civil War broke out after we'd been there a few months. And so we moved at the end of 1967. We moved, my mother and us 3 children moved back to Newcastle, and my father stayed in the Biafran army. So I always say, that my early, really, and it sounds a bit dramatic, but it is true that my earliest memories are about war and migration, if you like. I do have some very sort of memories, very sort of vague, or no, not vague, but sort of memories of the Biafran War and of air raid sirens and taken off in the dark when we left Biafra.
Interesting. Your official bio says, I have lived in many different cities around the world without ever for a moment forgetting
where I am from,
Newcastle. And I think I found that quite interesting because I wanted to know, why is Newcastle so important to you? What do you love about this?
Well, that's a fantastic question. And I think partially why it's so important to me was, because I grew up here from the age of 2.5, and we arrived here from war-torn, literally war-torn country. And my mother had cancer. That was one of the reasons why we came back. We got a council house from the council. We got fantastic education. We got health, support. So it was really that kind of level of support was really important. And as a child, my mother made sure I knew that, it didn't just happen by chance, that working people had struggled for generations to ensure that that kind of support and help was available to people in need, as we were. And that was part of, Geordie's solidarity. So I think if you ask what it is I love most about Newcastle, there are not enough hours in the year for me to talk about all of that. But I suppose it would be that sense of solidarity that I really remember as a child, that the Newcastle people and the council were there to give the help and support, and that there was a history of fighting for social justice. I mean, this was at a time when I was really also, there was intense racism and racial abuse at the school. We were the only black family there, but at the same time, all the adults, the teachers, the dinner ladies, the council workers, they were all incredibly supportive. And so, yeah, I love the solidarity. I love the honesty, for better or for worse. And what else happened? And I love the castles. There's castles everywhere. So only when you leave Newcastle that you realise that actually there aren't castles everywhere in every part of the
street corner.
country. We just have castles. There's so much I love about that, but that's part of it. That's really part of it.
To buttress that part about community and solidarity, I lived in Dubai for about 5 years with my family, and when we living there all that time, I never knew who my neighbors were. We're living in these high-rise buildings, and that was just it. You got to work, you do what you got to do. Yeah. But then we moved to Newcastle, and the first day we were moving into our apartment, the car pulled up, and random strangers who were going to be neighbors pop out the window and be like, "Yo, welcome, can I help you with that?" I'm like, "Yo, don't steal my stuff." It just felt so strange, to have people just show up like that, just willing to help. So definitely, I think that made us stay for sure. We got amazing people out here. But talking about that, at what point did you realize you were going to get into politics? I mean, where did that come from?
Well, that's it. So, like I say, my mother, who was of Irish immigrant heritage, she'd been born in Newcastle, but she always told me that Newcastle and the North East were the greatest places in the world, and she was very political, and that she was a member of the Labour Party. But so I joined the Labour Party when I was 16, and in fact, I was elected as the MP for my school, Kenton School, when I was 17 for the Labour Party. That was my very first election. But what I didn't really think about politics, because all the politicians I saw on the TV were white, they were male, they were, seemed very angry with everything. I didn't know how to become a politician. So actually, what I wanted to do was be an engineer. And that was what inspired me. And I like to make things work. So I worked as an engineer, and that's where I worked all over the world. I worked in Nigeria, in the US, and France, and so a bit in the UK. But Margaret Thatcher destroyed all our engineering and industry, so there weren't that many jobs here. I suppose what made me decide to put myself forward, which is what you have to do, and I think that's a really important lesson. You have to put yourself forward to be selected or to become an MP. Was really three things. It was becoming more confident, sort of, in myself and what I had to offer. I think partially from working all over the world. It was the Labour Party bringing in all women shortlists, which made me think, well, actually, they really do want women. They're not just talking about it, and then it was when the MP for Newcastle Central announced that he was going to stand down at the next election, because I knew I didn't, I love politics, interested in politics, and I love democracy, but I really wanted to represent the people of Newcastle. I wanted to represent people I cared about, and I care about Newcastle. So when he announced that in 2009, I thought, well, I'll go for it. And the good people of Newcastle, the Labour members of Newcastle, selected me, for which I am eternally grateful.
Give me 30 seconds to interrupt your interview very quickly. The reason I make these videos is because for far too long, the African story has been told by other people but us. And so, at Critical Factor, the core goal is to spotlight African excellence wherever it is across the world. And if that is something that resonates with you, please support the channel by simply subscribing to the channel and, of course, sharing this so that other people can see it. And without saying too much, let's get back to the interview. I like the fact that you touched on your engineering background, because I was going to literally jump on that as well. Like, I mean, you have a degree in, engineering, and I think you also became the head of telecom technology at Ofcom and all that. And so now in politics, do you approach all the problems as an engineer, or how exactly do you do
that? That's a fantastic question. That's a brilliant question, because when I went from literally, I went from engineering to being an MP. Like, I took 6 weeks off my job as an engineer, and then I was elected, and then I was an MP. And, I thought I was leaving engineering behind. And the thing I love about engineering is that what matters, is what it works. And, it doesn't matter your color or your gender, though it can be very lonely being the only woman in an engineering team. What matters is whether the code works, or the bridge stands up, or the circuit does what it's supposed to do. Whereas politics is much more about sort of what you say and what you feel and how you communicate with people. And you're also you're judging many different priorities. Like, not everybody in Newcastle feels the same way about the same things. So, if I'm representing them, some people might be angry with what I'm doing. Some people might want me to do, something else. Let's talk about the new Newcastle United Stadium and where it's going to be, because that's going to be very controversial. So, for example, so there was a huge difference. There is a huge difference between being an engineer and being an MP in terms of the skills, but there is also that core thing of trying to make things work, and also trying to be honest and committed with people, and which is why I definitely am a sort of completer finisher. Finishing things, not just picking things up and then forgetting about them. So there are some things which are really, really applicable, but not everything is, and you have to, you have to recognize that as well and be adaptable. And then the other big thing, of course, was that in the intervening 15 years, technology and engineering has just become so much more important that it becomes part of my casework now as well.
Indeed. I mean, we're going to touch on that and your talk on AI and how that's impacting the world. But speaking of why, I just realized why I liked you from the get-go. I have a degree in engineering as well. I see
engineers, yeah.
But then I also think that somewhere in there, like you mentioned briefly, that being the woman engineer prepared you for a bit of solitude, because I know in one of the interviews you did mention, as an engineer, you were often the only black person in the room and the only woman. And now, being in parliament as well, you still kind of sometimes feel like the only person. How have you navigated that,
Well, that's so as an engineer, I spent a lot of time thinking about how to encourage more women into engineering, encourage particularly more people from black and ethnic minority backgrounds and from working class backgrounds. Going into Parliament, there's a lot more women. And the Labour Party is 50% women MPs now. And there are, in the last election, we have a lot more fantastic black MPs as well, not quite sort of totally representative as in the country, but it's still it still can be very lonely, and particularly in certain discussions and debates, and there's still. There's still a long way to go. And when you walk around Parliament, I always say this: all you see is all the portraits of dead white men in tights, and that certainly doesn't make you feel at home. So I think but I do think that, as even if you're the only person in the room, your voice still should be heard. And you're the only person in the room of that, whatever background, your voice is still worth hearing. And in fact, what politics has really taught me is all those people who believe that they have the answers because they have a privileged background. They have the answers for them, but not for the country, certainly not for the people of Newcastle. So I can, naturally shy person before I went into politics, I get the courage to stand up and speak because I know I'm speaking for Newcastle, which is the best place on earth and deserves someone who can speak for them. So that's part of how I negotiate it. And the other thing I would say is networks. Networks are so important. I speak as a network engineer, but networks, talking to other people who have similar or just comparable experience, knowing that you're not alone. Other people are facing that kind of as well, so so it's exchanging experiences, and we do that quite a lot in Parliament, particularly over WhatsApp, which helps.
To that person who's watching, who hopes to get into politics someday, a person of color, a migrant, what would be your words to them?
Well, I would say thank you, congratulations, go for it, do it. You need to. We need so much to have more people of more diverse backgrounds in Parliament. I mean, we have come a long way since the 80s or the 90s or whatever, but we still got further to go. And I always say, and this is particularly to women who can sort of hang back, that however sort of messy or complicated your life may be now, that's why we need you in Parliament, because we need you to represent all the messy, complicated lives that there are out there. And I suppose the advice I would give is that to know who it is you want to represent, to get to know the communities the communities that you'd be speaking for as an MP or as a councillor, to get to know them, because you have to speak for all of them, and but not to hide yourself. I was recently made a dame by His Majesty King Charles. It was actually his sister, Princess Anne, who did the ceremony. And I worked with Newcastle College to design, and they're amazing, an outfit which represented my heritage. So it represented Geordie, it represented Nigeria, it represented Africa, it represented Ireland. I couldn't, because the construction was almost engineering, and I think, being proud of your own story and using that to engage with the communities you want to represent. There's nothing like that. That's fantastic. And so if that's something that you want to do, I really congratulate you on it. And also, get in touch. If you're in Newcastle, get in touch. I'm really keen to help support people, more diverse people into Parliament.
And speaking about that technology and the engineering side of you, you've been very vocal about big tech giants and their power, and some of the fact that there needs to be more regulation with regard to open source and things like that. What exactly, if you had, maybe let's go this way.
Oh, right.
If you could speak to one CEO of a tech company right now, and you could say something to them, who would it be? What would you say?
That's a great question, actually. I mean, I'm not going to choose Elon Musk, because I think he's beyond. He's he's beyond redemption. If that's not unchristian, I think I'm not sure. I suppose I fundamentally disagree that the big tech bros should be the people who are making these decisions. So I might speak to the CEO of OpenAI or Anthropic, who are currently in a big actually I might speak big argument with President Trump, or I might be the CEO of Microsoft, as they're one of the biggest companies. But I suppose what I would say to them, in the end, I believe very strongly that the people always win. And if what you're doing, and it is generally with a lot of technology, is trying to sort of short circuit people in order to just make profits. It's almost like people are incidental to that. It's people's rights, people's data, people's safety online. You'll turn people off technology, and you will. In the end, make technology unprofitable, as well as unpopular. So you really need to be on the right side of history and do technology for the good of people.
And speaking of risks, you also believe that banning tech, or social media from under 16s is not necessarily a solution, to the tech woes. What would you rather think would be a better solution then, if we were to think about it?
God, you've done your research. I wasn't sure I'd said that publicly, but yeah, I am. I think so. The select committee that I chair, Science, Innovation, and Technology, have done a lot of work on this, and we've heard evidence, and it's also something that I've been looking at. So yeah, as you said, I worked. My last job before coming into Parliament was for a regulator. So I think there's 2 or 3 things that need to be done. You need to enforce the regulation that we have, because there is Ofcom has a duty to make people safe online. It is not a duty that it's meeting right now. It needs to enforce the powers it has to keep people safe, people of all ages safe online, and particularly younger people in terms of the design. We also need to address the algorithms which are not transparent and which target young people, use their data to target young people, and we need to address the advertising, which is how all companies, just about all companies, and there might be a couple of sections, Amazon, make all their money, and so in which incentivize, doom scrolling, more sensational content. So those are some of the things that we've recommended as a committee. The companies need to make their products safe for people, including children, and government needs to enforce that.
Mm-hmm. If technology were a person,
what
do you think is for us or against us? And technology in this case maybe could be AI, to be honest. So yeah.
Well, that's if technology was a person, I mean that's I hadn't thought about this, but it's a great sort of metaphor. Technology is always a baby. Because it's always evolving, it's always changing, it's always being new. I mean, I guess you couldn't really describe a toaster as a baby, but it's not. It's old technology. So the technology that concerns us is always a baby, and it's how we shape it. And what I suppose I'd say is that it is. The first thing to recognize is that we do shape it and we can shape it. It's not something that is imposed upon us. It's not a person that comes out fully formed and we have to accept it and react to it. It is something, or react to them. It is something that we shape. And so, we have to decide how we shape it. We make the technology, which we choose. Or which our governments choose for us, and we need to make it the technology which is a person that we like.
I like that. I like that. Every leader kind of thinks about their legacy, I hope.
Yes.
And if you were to talk about your legacy, what is that to you?
I don't talk about my legacy because that makes it about me. But you're right to say that I want to achieve some things, and I want to leave some things behind me as the MP for Newcastle. And I hope it would be that I want it to be that I make Newcastle a better, more inclusive, and more prosperous place, and that I showed people in Newcastle and across the country or the world that you can grow up on a council estate and go to a state school and have a disabled mum and be from a immigrant background and make the world a better place.
This is for the African leaders who may be seeing this.
Mm-hmm.
What would be your message to African leaders at this time?
I'm incredibly proud to be part of the African diaspora. Africa is a continent, of over 50 countries, has such huge potential. But I'm, for one, and I know I'm tired of it having potential. I wanted to achieve its potential. And so my message to African leaders, is to lead, is to focus on absolutely focus on African people to lead in their interests. And again, you know, we are stronger together. So you know, we need that leadership and that movement for the whole world, really.
I love that. And on a final note, we have a closing tradition where we have guests tell us what they would think is the critical factor to their success and their journey. So if you were to think about your journey, your life, what would you say has been that critical factor to that success?
Well, you know, another great question. And there's a lot to sort of choose from. I think it's important to recognize that success is a matter of luck and persistence. You know, never giving up, not giving up, keeping on going. But I think what's critical to my success, has been working class solidarity, because that is what has built the schools, that gave me great, fantastic teachers who taught me not only engineering, but so much more. And that is what made sure that I didn't die of childhood illnesses. And that's what gave me a safe home, which is so important for anybody's, you know, personal development. So working class solidarity that makes people, that gives people the room to realize their potential. And I know that is what the current, you know, the Labour government that I'm proud to have helped get into power, I know that's what we're trying to achieve.
Thank you so much for making time to be here, Chi. It's been an honor sitting with you, and we definitely hope to do this again sometime in the future.
Yeah, let's do that. I'm sorry that it was so short, but it's been great. You have fantastic questions, you know.
Trust me, that's only a bit of it.
That's only a bit of it. Oh, wow.
So much else unasked, but then we'll take this, and hopefully we will catch up again in the future. But thank you once again.
Thank you. Thanks very much. It's great.